All right, good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Two Geeks Talking is an entertainment industry interview show where we interview the creative people from the comic, film, TV, movie, and video game industries. And of course, I'm your host, Kurt Sasso. We're joined today by another talented and creative person who actually was brought to my attention by a good friend, Paul Taylor from Wopsy Square, and I happened to flip through the archives of this wonderfully talented creative person named Paige Halsey Warren, and well, she's known for Big
Busty Girl Comics.
Busty Girl Comics, and of course AHTspace. Is that the pseudo-correct pronunciation of it?
Yeah.
Wonderful, and thanks for coming on the show. How are you doing today?
Thanks. I'm doing well. It's been a good week so far.
Internet issues aside, that is.
Yeah.
When it comes to comics, I'm always a fan of very talented people like yourself, because it's not just about the genres or topics that you write and draw about, especially with Busty Girl Comics, as well as with AHTspace. AHTspace is more of my wheelhouse right now, although I do like your other work as well too. So tell us, why did you want to do AHTspace?
Well, all right, and this is really dorky, but I'm working towards a trifecta. I want to do the gag-a-day, the 3-panel slice of life, and eventually I'm going to do a long form that I'm in the process of writing, and I'm dying to get started on, but it's probably about a year or two away from even beginning to see the light. So.
Wow.
But I'm so excited for it.
That's crazy. Why is that? Some goal you've had in life, or just something that kind of you figured, why not?
So it's kind of twofold. I want to challenge myself in terms of writing, as well as in terms of sticking to a goal, like seeing a target and forcing myself to keep working towards it until I actually achieve it, as opposed to sort of seeing it down the line and going, I'll get back to that later. Follow through is not always my strongest suit.
Okay, well then let's talk about yourself briefly here. For those that don't know about your work with Busty Girl Comics, tell us what that's about, and then we'll jump into what is AHTspace about.
So, back in January 2012, I was online shopping at like 1 in the morning, mostly just window shopping, and I was looking at all these really cute t-shirts, and I was getting more and more frustrated by the fact that every single shirt I looked at, the design, like if I actually put the shirt on, the design would be completely warped by my chest. I had a t-shirt in college that I absolutely loved. It was just Kermit the Frog's face, like screen printed on, like just like his eyes and his smile screen printed on a green shirt. And I loved it, but he was always significantly happier whenever I was wearing the shirt. And it got weird looks and comments. I'm like, I was frustrated. And when I'm frustrated or annoyed at something, I will draw it. Just because if I don't, I'll probably yell. So, Rampage is not a misnomer. Like, there's a reason why I sign a lot of my comics Rampage. So I made a quick little comic about screen-printed tees stretching out when you wear them. And I posted it on my Tumblr, which had about, I want to say like 130 followers at the time, which isn't bad. It was, but like, considering that it was the start of a professional outlet for me, I was getting frustrated. And when I posted this, I got like 30 hits overnight, which is unheard of for me at that time. Little did I know. So I'm like, well, you'll like this one. I got 1 million of these. And in retrospect, I had only about 300, but it's pretty good 300.
Yeah.
So the next day I set up the website. I made a whole bunch and queued them up so that posted one a day, and that was the last time I ever had a backlog.
The infamous queue was only that one time.
I tried a couple times. During guest weeks, I did all right, because I had to set it up beforehand. So.
Well, then I mean, that's incredible. Just you take a topic that's personal and that you and many people deal with, and it just catches like wildfire, and that's amazing. I mean, you know, viral comics at its best there.
Yeah, and I was amazed at how much of it became a support network. Like, I was not expecting that at all, because I come from a very busty family. My poor dad had to listen to my sister, my mom, and I, like, gripe about our boobs and make awful jokes about them and puns and just, like, all these jokes that he was completely embarrassed to hear. And because he didn't want to think about it, like we're his babies, and he doesn't want to think about us growing up. And yeah, so we had a lot of them, these jokes, and I had no idea that there were people out there who didn't have that sort of support at home, and it was eye-opening, for one, because it was, you know, when you become aware of something that you didn't know, that's always kind of, it shakes you a bit, like, not necessarily in a bad way, but it shakes you. So that was interesting to see, and I was happy to help provide a support network online with resources. Like, there's still a resource page on the website with different stores, just random things like breast examination, like self-breast examination, what to do about underboob rash, what to do if your underwire breaks, just resources like that like you never would think that there would be out there, and lo and behold, here comes this comic that collates all of it. So, yeah.
The power of the internet, go figure. It's amazing what you can find there. But you know, once you're successful with that, you moved on to another fun project that I think many creative people that I hope that are watching and listening to this particular show will go to and understand. I mean, they should understand, because why else would I be doing this show if I don't talk to creative people? But AHTspace is your newest current comic that I'm really enjoying. You know, because for myself, being a new to visual art and filmmaking, you know, I'm touching upon the areas you're talking about, minus the cosplay aspect, because I don't think I could risk it. So.
So this is, I'm not even sure like how to chip away at what AHTspace is right now, because I don't want to give away too much.
Yeah.
And I'm honestly really kind of surprised at how much people are taking a liking to it, just because it's definitely a departure from the gag-a-day that I had with BGC. And BGC got really big, so I was kind of worried that when people saw, like, oh, we loved her comic about boobs, there's this comic about, like, people being 20-somethings in a warehouse together, like, and then they go and read it and they're like, oh, this isn't about boobs at all. I was worried that was going to happen, and thankfully that doesn't seem to be the case. People are actually enjoying the new thing, and yay, because I enjoy making the new thing. But what it is, it's about 6 artists sharing a warehouse space together in a small town in Massachusetts. And the town is Constance, Massachusetts, which is completely fake, and is more or less where Tingsboro is, which is kind of north of Worcester, southwest of New Hampshire-ish, like, kind of, it's more northwest of Boston-ish, on the border between New Hampshire and Massachusetts.
It's somewhere in there, you know.
It's a small town, like, it's a little college town. In my mind, the whole town is already built, and it's this cool little town, but you will never see any other part of it, because the point of view is only ever from this building. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah.
You only see things sort of through the building's eyes. Because okay, so AHTspace, the current installment of it, like the current world that you're seeing, it's just one chapter in a much bigger project that I have planned. Because I have so many projects planned and no follow through. So another chapter that I'm already planning on making is in the very first comic of AHTspace, you see one of the main 6 characters, Rodney. His aunt actually owns the lease to the building, and she rents it to him and his art buddies that he hasn't actually met yet, because he needs a place to work. She wants to keep that building actually occupied and like maintained and everything, but she can't really find a buyer. So she's like, and finds 5 other people to share it with, and that's where the story starts for AHTspace. I'm already planning on working on the story of how Aunt Meg actually got the building. And that takes place right around the turn of the millennia, so right around Y2K, and that'll be fun to draw all the like 90s and early 2000s clothes. Make all the like references, like in sync and stuff.
I was gonna say she wanted it in a Backstreet Boys early 90s Pearl Jam concert. That's what it was, with in a card game or something like that. Backstage.
Yeah. She wanted an event for whether or not Ross and Rachel would get back together.
Yeah, there you go. Oh gosh, that's gonna be hilarious. I think that'll be an interesting twist, because how many people?
So that doesn't actually happen though. Sorry, like that's not actually.
I was gonna say that would be hilarious if it was. You should totally do that as like a side alternate universe story.
I should. Oh, I should have a bet going at some point along those lines. That'd be good. Sorry. Okay.
Just write it down, like the mayor and the aunt were at a tournament or some they had some bet going because they were longtime friends. Blah blah blah. Whatever. Anyhow, you're the writer and artist, and I'm a fan. I'm just subjecting my crazy.
I've actually been very, very open to fan suggestion along the lines. Like the way this the story is set up. So I'm sure you've heard the George R. R. Martin gardener versus architect. Like
no,
okay, so some writers are gardeners and some writers are architects. A gardener, like, they plant the seeds and they just sort of see what comes up. And an architect has everything planned out and everything fits together in just the right, perfect way. And a good writer is a mix of both. And so I'm going a more gardener route with AHTspace, and the next series, the one I mentioned that's like 2 years away from even being started, that's a much more architect approach. So I've been really open to fan suggestion on AHTspace because I really want to see what people say about it. Like, I'm fangirling over my own comic already. I'm so excited for it. Before it even officially started, I started designing T-blends for it on a T-blend company site thing. Like, that's how stoked I am for the series.
Wow. Yeah. So what type of T-blends do you have?
So it's on Adagio, which is spelled like the musical thing. And it's, I think, Dorian's is the Ruibo's blend, which I've tried that one, and it's, I'm not a fan of Ruibo's blends, but I liked it. It was good, if I say so myself. A bunch of them are green teas. Some are dark teas. So. Yeah.
Nice.
You should go check them out. I'll give you.
Yeah, give me the links, and I'll post them on the site as well too for you. Get some promotion that way as well. Well then, specifically though, I mean, have you done everything that your characters have done? Have you been a photographer? Obviously, you're an artist and a writer. Have you also done clothing as well? I mean, are all of these characters bits of yourself, basically?
Yes, yes, and I'm so glad you picked on that because I was like debating whether or not I should bring that up, but yes, all of these characters are related to me somehow, and that's incredibly egotistical sounding, but I don't care because I'm like freaking love it. So they're all, or at least the first, Rodney, Iris, and Scout, they're paths that I've debated taking over the course of my artistic career. So Rodney represents, like, I stink at abstract painting. That's his medium. Um, I stink at abstract painting, but for the longest time I thought that I was going to pursue traditional painting almost exclusively. Like do the whole gallery circuit, maybe eventually open my own gallery, that whole thing. And in the process, start a co-op. I even picked out the cutest little building in Worcester that would be perfect for it. That's totally where his... Sorry, I almost gave away a spoiler. Sorry.
I forgot to mention that's usually something we save till the end. Is we do have a spoiler alert segment. So.
Yeah, I will get away. But so he represents taking the more traditional path with painting, and Iris. So she's my favorite. I love Iris. I know Scout is a fan favorite right now, but Iris is my favorite. She's a representation of the path that I almost took and went to college for, really. I studied costuming all through high school. I've loved sewing since I was a kid, and got pretty good at it. I went to college for it. I was a double major in studio art and theater with a concentration in costuming, and I got like 3 years in, and I'm like, you know what? I like the designing part of it, but I'd rather keep the construction part of it a hobby, because there's only so many all-nighters you can pull while building a corset or a hat, and when you literally have to don a hazmat suit to construct some of these stuff, you're like, I want to be drawing right now. So, plus it also, it fries the nerves a bit. If you aren't really passionately obsessed, like good obsessed, but obsessed with some art forms, it's hard to succeed. And in my experience, costuming was one of those. That's not to say that I've given it up completely. In fact, my friend Yell of Yell TV is doing a K9 costume that I made for her this very weekend at San Diego Comic-Con. So very proud of that. But it was a path that I explored, and it wasn't right for me. So I'm re-exploring that with Iris. I'm letting her continue that potential path. And Scout is probably the closest to the current path that I'm on. So she's a digital artist. She does mostly, almost exclusively, fan art and commissions. She does the convention circuit, and she is a bit flaky when it comes to the actual business of it. I don't want to show my hand too much because this is going to be an arc coming up soon, but it's problematic for her. And I'm hoping to sort of share some resources in the process telling that problematic arc. Because it's, when you're doing the convention scene, it's hard to get a straight answer about a lot of things. And it's important to share those resources when you find it, I found.
Fair enough. Right. But what about your other characters?
Sorry, am I talking too much about them? Because I
No. I'm curious about the other characters because you have sculpture artists in there as well as photography. I mean, you're hitting up what I'm doing currently right now in my life with school, being a double major in visual arts, communication, media, and film, with a minor in computer science and a minor in business. So,
You're all over the place. That's awesome.
Yeah, you say
No,
that.
I
now.
totally feel you. If I could have fit a business minor in, I would have, as well as a film minor. Like, I would have been all over that. As it was, I ended up graduating early and going into animation. So,
Oh,
go
nice.
figure.
See, that would have been fun. But talk about your other characters as well too, because I love the coffee shop girl.
That's my web designer.
That was hilarious.
Verbatim my web designer. So that's so she's Lila's directly based off of my friend Julie, who so BGC was a Tumblr-based webcomic, which I knew well. I knew the ins and outs of. I learned a lot in the process of doing that, in terms of HTML and how it's grown since I was in middle school and first learned it. And then when I decided to do AHTspace, I didn't want it to be on Tumblr. A lot of the BGC comics got away from me, just in terms of being reposted and straight up stolen and edited, and like it was a nightmare. And now I know better. I know a lot of more effective ways to protect your stuff, but I would get away from that as much as possible, at least for a little while. And so I tried out WordPress, and I could not wrap my head around it. I don't know why. Like, I've had a blog since I was like 13. I don't know what was wrong with me, but I can't wrap my head around it. Like, every time I went to go check it out, I just got overwhelmed and threw the mouse across the room. So I asked my friend Julie if she could help me out, and she stepped in, and I drew up thumbnails of everything I wanted, and she would run it by me every other day. And she's a wonderful person, and yeah. So I wanted to thank her with a cameo character, and I wanted to have the cameo character be pretty vamp. I don't know if I can say the whole word. I don't know if I can have a potty mouth on this thing.
You can, by all means, go for it.
Okay, she's a badass. I wanted her to be as badass as possible, and so I put her in the boat that a lot of us are in right now, where we have these awesome skills and all of the education to back it up, and all of the experience that we need to get these great jobs, but we can't get them because they just don't exist, or we can't, you can't get past the internship gate or what have you. So I had her be this awesome designer and this really ambitious girl who's stuck working at this donut shop, and you'll never see it in the whole world, but this particular donut shop is the... You alright?
Podcast. Sorry.
You alright?
Yeah, I'm fine. Badass, high-tech person working at a coffee shop.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So this particular coffee shop is the divey one on the edge of town that no one really goes into. And the reason for that is because the canal that they're right next to reeks. Like, it stinks every year. They're in the process of dredging it up, and it smells to high heaven, and that's going to be a plot point coming up. Well, not plot point, but that is a plot point that you don't know of yet, but it's going to happen. But anyway, so she's working in this local chain donut place in the divey one that's just barely hanging on, and she's there only because she's got benefits there. She can't get a job that she can get benefits at. Yeah. And a girl's gotta have dental. It's a depressing boat that we're all right now, or so many of us are in right now, and I wanted to kind of have her be a mouthpiece for that. So she's there for that reason. The didgeridoo man, who makes an appearance, like 1 or 2 episodes, is there as a hat tip to the lovely college town that I went to, which I absolutely adore. I went to school, University of Vermont, up in Burlington, which is about a half an hour away from the Canadian border. And if you ever get the chance, I highly recommend going up there. But it's an experience. When I was living in the dorms up there, I'd be awoken on a regular basis at 3 in the morning by a guy playing didgeridoo in the stairwell, to which his only excuse would be, "But it sounds so cool out here." So I wanted to sort of tip my hat to the eccentrics up in Vermont with that guy. And it was also a bit of a nod to the fact that sculpture is not my strong suit. Costuming can be very sculptural, but the actual art form of sculpture eludes me. I'm trying to think. And Dorian is directly based off of my best friend, who is a tattoo artist, which I haven't revealed that yet, but Dorian is a tattoo artist. That is his day job. His art form is screen printing. And he's best friends with Gia, and maybe something more. And I'm trying to think what else. So I'm trying to think of how much I should reveal. But I'll just bounce straight to Gia. So Gia is a personal trainer, and she works at the same gym that Dorian goes to, so that's how they met. Mm-hmm. And she's a runner who takes photographs while she runs and then makes watercolors based off of that. So she's another traditional painter, but she's more closely related to my sister in terms of of her art form. Like, my sister's an engineer, but she is an amateur photographer, which is awesome. Like, very artful family. I wanted to sort of nod to my sister a bit without making her blatantly in the comic. So I'm not sure if she would enjoy creating storylines that may not be flattering. And similar boat with Gabby, who is also a photographer, who does not take her work so seriously and is kind of into art for the fun of it, which is not a problem. If you enjoy art as a hobby, power to you. Like, that's wonderful. But it can be damaging to the business of art as a whole, when amateurs don't price their work accordingly because they don't need it to survive. So they'll sell a painting for $5 and call it a day. Meanwhile, someone who's a professional painter who needs to pay their bills is asking like $400, $500 for an original painting, and a potential buyer is pointing at the $5 canvas going, like, well, that person's selling it for $5. I don't know what your problem is. Mm-hmm. And I hope to explore that shortcoming in the industry with her a bit. I swear this comic isn't just a soapbox. I swear. Mm-hmm.
You sure?
I'm trying to present it in fun ways, the fun, in the same way that I learned about this stuff as I've been developing as an artist. Mm-hmm. I hope to present it in a fun way where people who haven't been exposed to it yet will learn about it, and people who may not ever be exposed to it will know a bit about it and will understand, oh, well, that's why paintings are so expensive, or I don't know, oh, that's why we should give our employees benefits. Yeah, it's a bit of a soapbox. Yeah.
That's okay though. It's kind of funny. I did my very first art show, and for me, I'm extremely new to the visual art world when it comes to traditional mediums, because I mean, as you can see back there, I mean, I do pen and ink, and that's a traditional oil painting in the background. But I mean, I went to a winery for a local art show because I'm part of an art society in town here, and I was just doing acrylic stuff, and I figured, okay, well, there's going to be, it's going to be a great weekend. Kids will be there. I'll have like little mini, like Looney Tunes stuff. Who doesn't love Looney Tunes? Apparently no one loves Looney Tunes anymore. It's like, what the? And so I'm like selling all this stuff, or attempting, I should say, attempting to sell this stuff, and no one's biting or whatever. And yet I see these traditional artists that are selling their works for $300-400, and some prints on a canvas type deal for $95, and I'm like, wow, inflation. But I can understand from a professional aspect how they put the time into it. Their time is worth money, and it's good to see that they're pricing accordingly. But we're in a small town.
It's coming from a relatively small town myself. It's tough to find an audience that will pay for what art is really worth. And when I say what it's worth, I mean, like, so typically the way pricing will break down for art is the number of hours you put into it, and you never want to take less than minimum wage for your work. So if the painting behind you took 3 hours, then you should at least be charging, I backed myself into a corner with math. At least over $21 or $24. You want to take, I don't know what the minimum wage is anymore. It depends on the state. It depends on the state, but you want to make sure that it's at least minimum wage. Okay. And then you also want to include your materials, because it's not enough to just make enough to pay for the hours you put into it. You want to make sure that you aren't losing money every time you go to the art store and pick up more supplies.
Right.
And then if you're selling through a gallery, they need to take a cut. But you never want to take less than 50% of what they're selling it for, which is something that people don't really always know, and that's something that gets a lot of artists into trouble. And just rules like that like aren't very well published, and get a lot of artists, like especially beginner artists, into trouble. And I've lost where I was going at that point, but I just want to share as much of that information as I can, because it was an uphill battle trying to figure that stuff out, especially since I was an art major, and I've noticed that my program didn't offer any art as business courses, right. Not even a seminar or anything, which, as I found out later, is actually pretty standard. Like, there really aren't any art as business courses, and that's so disheartening, because that's a major part of it. I actually was just in the process of going through my finances now, and it's like pulling teeth, but it's worth it at the end of the day. Because you can start to see if you need to charge more, if you can afford to give discounts, and that's another way of like making sales. If you're not quite there yet, if you establish what your prices should be, you can then offer discounts to get your name out there a bit, which I actually did back in October, and I got way more commissions than I could handle at the time, but it was worth it to get my name out there, and it's been paying off since. So that's, and I ended up having to I charged less than I really should for the artwork that I produced, but it was with the express purpose of giving a discount for a special promotional deal. And I think I'm getting away from my point a bit here. Sorry if this isn't making sense anymore.
No, it's making sense. It actually is. It's something that I think, and especially when it comes to filmmaking as well, I'm noticing that too. When it comes to uh, we're taught the public relations aspect, we're taught the theory, we're taught the production side of things, but in talking to actual directors and producers and stuff like that, they're saying, well, you need to know this about business, this about business, this about business, and everything along that line. I'm like, I'm going into third year of 4 years, and we've done no business whatsoever. We know how to make films, we know our roles, we know how to be organized, or at least I do. Uh, how can we make money at this? And it's like, well, you should really be taking business. So I'm like, oh, great.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So I'm hoping to share some of the resources that I've come across along the way, um, and I'm hoping that in a fun comic form will make them more digestible. um, and I'm hoping that I'm not getting away too far from the actual story of the comic. Um, so a lot of the resources that I'll be sharing will happen underneath in the comments section of the comic. So, yeah.
Perfect. I think that'll be definitely worth it, and I'll have to readjust my pricing accordingly. And but yeah,
Always
sorry.
wage.
Yeah, no, I was totally just undercutting everything that I was doing only because it was my first time.
And
You
that
learn.
happened. That's like the very first. That's the most common and the first mistake that any artist will make. And I had someone talk to me about it at Long Beach Comic Expo this past spring, and she's like, "Well, I can't get any commissions if I don't make them cheap." And I said, "Well, think about it this way: like if you're making your work cheaper than it's worth, and it's worth at least minimum wage. If you went to school for it, it's worth more because you are skilled labor at that point."
Mm.
And she was taking less than minimum wage because she wanted to make sure she actually had commissions coming in. But when you do that, what you're really doing is giving away your work for free. Maybe just in part, but you're giving away like $3. If you're only charging $5 for something that takes you an hour to do, and minimum wage in your state is $8, then you're giving away $3 an hour for free. If you're going to do that, you might as well invest in your own projects. Like, do something that you're really dedicated to and you really have your heart set on, because chances are that will make you money too. That's what BGC was for me. I couldn't get commissions. I didn't want to charge less than my work was worth at that point, and I was really frustrated. So, like, just really angry. So I started drawing boobs, and it became a big comic. And I got a lot of grief for monetizing it, but it became a part-time job. I was putting 20 hours a week into it, as well as I was still studying at that point. I was getting a certificate. And I put ads up. I had T-shirts. I had the books eventually. I had stickers. I monetized it out the wazoo, and I got a lot of grief for it because people assumed that I was selling out or something along those lines. And I don't understand how being a business person is the same as selling out. Like, actually getting what your art is worth. I could rant for you.
I think we could do another show completely on the business side of things, because I've wanted to monetize TGT I've been doing this for 6 years, almost going into my 7th year this August, and I've barely monetized it completely, to the point where I feel that if I do monetize it, I'm going to actually lose any whatever fan base I have, because I've been giving it away for free for over 6 years.
You'd be surprised. I do not have a mind for math at all. I understand the ebb and flow of supply and demand. Like, I understand the gut instincts of business. The actual money side of it, Phew. Um, so I might not be the best resource to talk about because it's a lot of stumbling around in the dark for me, but I've learned a lot, and I'd be more than happy to share my resources.
Wonderful. Well, I think that's a great place to say. That's everyone. I know in reading AHTspace, it'll come eventually through the page that you have, which is a wonderful resource, similar to how you had BGC, as these
BGC.
BGC. Okay, I had to think of that for a second. It's like acronyms, not good this late at night. And I think it'll be something where people can refer back to in order to really get an understanding of the business side of at least making art in general, not specifically comics, not specifically whatever the medium they're working with. Just a good general overall resource, which is I can't wait to see and find out as your arcs progress.
And I promise that the stories are also going to get, it's not just going to be me preaching at people about the art or business of art. The stories are going to be good. I'm really excited. I got some ghost stories coming up. I got some relationship drama. I got friend drama. I have family drama. I got and then the different So I mentioned that there's different time periods that I'm going to explore. You get to see when this building was first made. It's happening. Oh, and you get to see 15 years later as well. But
wow.
That's only going to happen after this particular arc ends. So there's definitely an end to AHTspace, and there's another chapter, and eventually a whole anthology. And I got this all planned out, and I'm so excited for it. So,
are you sure you? Are you sure? Are you sure you're not architecturing this as you go?
Okay, this is more of a landscaping job. So it's there's a little path and some hedges over there and a retaining wall over there, but it's growing in different ways. So there.
That's awesome. I know you've been taking fan suggestions and everything along that line as well too. How have the fans reacted to AHTspace?
By and large, they've been mostly enjoying the ride. I found. Not too many people have. Actually, I haven't gotten any negative feedback yet, which is kind of refreshing. BGC, because it had such a large audience, but overwhelmingly positive, but those negative comments that would come through periodically really bore into you. So it's refreshing to not have that with AHTspace. And a lot of people are just enjoying what's been happening, what's been playing out. And I think now that the drama's starting, now that you're really starting to see the interactions between the characters and where they continue, I think I'm gonna start getting. I think my fans are gonna start becoming more vocal about how they feel about each character and where they think that the story should go for those characters. And I'm hoping that starts with today's, because today's is kind of a curveball. I was so excited drawing it. It's so much fun. I get a little sadistic about these stories, okay, how can I mess with the fans? How can I rip their hearts out with the feels and then put their hearts back in with the happy feels like kitty cats?
Or squirrels.
Or squirrels. That was a chipmunk. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's rather refreshing to see, especially a new comic as you have it. It's actually quite refreshing to see an artist that's so just enthralled and passionate about what you have going on and what's coming in the future as well too. And you're excited about this, which is great to see. I mean, it's wonderful.
I am excited. I love these projects. I wish that they would come together faster because I want to see what happens. And I'm also excited because, and a lot of my fans don't know it yet, but there's there's a sequel to BGC coming in the works, and I'm really excited about that, and they don't know it yet, and that's like really fun for me. Like, I'm sure some of them will know it now after watching this, but like, it's sort of like when you know you got someone a really good Christmas or birthday present, and you have the box and you see it on the shelf out of the corner of your eye, and you're like, oh yeah, I nailed it. Like, they're gonna love this. So that's kind of how I feel right now, and I can't wait to see them open the present. Yeah.
That's awesome. Everyone usually has that one person that kind of inspires them down their path to where they are today. Who was that for you?
Ah, that's a long list. Well, with BGC, a lot of the advice and the help I got came from the Frogman, which I don't know if many of your readers will probably know him as the Tumblr comedian. His name is Ben Grell, and he posts funny things. He posts funny photo edits, and he has a hat with a bear on it, even though his name is the Frogman, and he has the cutest dog named Otis. And he was a huge help in terms of helping me figure out the ins and outs of handling that much traffic, and to like subtly pat myself on the back for how much traffic I had. Like that much traffic, like to do with all the messages that were coming in, like how to break it down, how to not lose your head, how to not feed the trolls. Clearly, I didn't get all of that. Like, not all of it sunk in enough, but his advice was immeasurably helpful. In terms of comics, my friend Jackie Musto I love her. She's wonderful. She does K&P, and I'm actually borrowing K for the current arc. I'm really excited for that because it's the curveball art. That's awesome. But her two series, K&P and Lady Skylark, are amazing, and I can't even imagine how she gets such wonderful painterliness and updates twice a week for both comics. Like, I can't even fathom that. I can barely manage one a week, and I have like a cel-shaded thing. Like, I can't even. So I love her. She's wonderful. And so many others that I could not begin to name. Like, I should just make a list of all the wonderful people. Oh my god, and I can't believe I didn't like immediately think of him off the bat. Paul Taylor has been immeasurably helpful in terms of getting the word out about my comic. Like, both with BGC and with AHTspace now. He, like, right when the comic first started, I was still feeling down about my art because I really hadn't seen the progress that I was hoping to after graduation. And he was one of the first people who saw the potential of my work and ran with it. And the world needs more people like that. He's awesome. So I just wanted a little shout out to him.
Yeah, Paul's a great guy. I love. I just love his work, and I've had him on the show a couple of times as well too. So when you get to actually take a look at the site because your internet's finally back up and running, just listen to his interviews, and I think you'll have some fun with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Obviously, you've been very successful professionally in your career, in terms of the comics specifically. But do you consider yourself personally successful?
Success is a funny word. So it's hard to feel successful when you're. So I'm trying to get into the animation industry now. I moved out to California about a year ago to make the switch from comics into story art, and obviously I'm not stopping comics. I hope to follow a similar path that Joanne Matt, who's a story artist for DreamWorks at the moment and has worked on Avatar: The Last Airbender. She's so cool. So she's a storyboard artist for feature-length films right now, and she does comics on the side, and her comics are gorgeous. And it's hard not to feel daunted because I haven't had much success in terms of actually getting into the industry out here, and that's because there's a lot of overlap between comics and story art, but a lot of the technical skills don't always carry over. So it's more studying, which not the end of the world. I kind of love studying, but it's daunting. And in terms of like success in comics, it's wonderful seeing fans enjoy my work. Like that's a level of success that I'm so blessed by. Sometimes it's tough to keep that in mind when bills are coming up, but it's but I actually, when I was doing BGC, I would write down the most like loving, wonderful comments that I would get and put them up on my wall to remind myself of why I was doing it, and that makes the empty bank account feel much better.
Yeah, I don't know if someone, if you've checked this person out or not, but Chris Oatley, chrisoatley.com, you should...
I'm very familiar with Chris Oatley's stuff.
I was gonna say, if he doesn't have advice about the animation industry, I don't know who else would really. Another one would be Scott Christian Sava, Dreamland Chronicles.
Mm-hmm.
Good people, both great, amazing people. How do you deal with failure?
I mentioned that Rampage is not a misnomer, right?
Yeah.
My poor roommate has to overhear me yelling a lot. A lot of storming around. But so my tagline on my personal Tumblr is like, her rage is like a thunderstorm. So when that's for a reason. I usually get very angry. I storm around for about 5 minutes, and then then it's done. Then I'm like, all right, like I got rid of that anger. Time to focus now. So I literally storm for 5 minutes, and then clear skies, and like suddenly it's not muggy anymore, and things are wonderful, and I get back to work. And when the failure is a bit more heart-wrenching, I have friends for that. Like, I have friends to back me up and remind me, like, by the way, you had a very successful comic. Like your stuff clearly resonates. Just keep at it. And that's nice. That's really nice to be reminded of.
Oh, good stuff. The younger generation are looking towards yourself and your comics for inspiration, and they can find you as an inspirational person as well. But how can they inspire the generation that follows them?
That's a good question. By seeing the mistakes that we make, that my generation makes. If there's stuff that they don't like that we're doing, like, first of all, I would much prefer it if people tell me. Like, if they're offended by something that I do, I'd much rather they tell me so I can learn from my mistakes so I don't continue them. But if the next generation, I would highly recommend that when they see a mistake that their heroes make, whether it offends them, whether it's, like, if their hero says something that, like, deeply offends them, or if it's something as small as, like, their hero tends to draw eyes too wide apart and it looks really unrealistic and pulls them out of the story as they're reading it. Like, the big mistakes, the little mistakes, remember those. Don't hold it against the artist. Like, call them out on it if you can, but, like, remember that and incorporate that into your work. And remember that when the generation behind you calls you out on your work, like, remember that you were at that point once, and dominoes and so forth. because that's how progress happens. You see an idea, you like the idea, but you can see how you can make it better. And I'm a huge fan of that.
Awesome. Good stuff. I lost my mouse for a second. Is there anything that I haven't brought up that you'd like those that are watching and listening to this particular show to know about?
Mm, uh, as usual, at the end of things like this, I tend to thank everyone who reads my stuff. Like, it's overwhelmingly flattering that people see my stuff and they're like, yeah, this is cool enough that I will share it with the people that I know. And just it's made me cry on multiple occasions, just how wonderful that feeling is. Like happy cry. Because that's what makes it worth it. Like the readers are what make it worth it. And yeah, like they're the best. I'm trying to think of like anything more to say than that, but the readers are the best. That's the long and short of it.
And finally, do you have something to kind of tease your readers about that might be upcoming, possibly near or in the future of the comic? Spoiler alert segment, told you.
Okay. So, the current arc that's currently happening, it's going to answer some, like, the very first question. Okay. So, I have been asked if there will be any openly LGBTQA characters, and this current arc will answer that question. And I'm so excited about that. Because there should be so much more of that, because it's interesting storytelling, and that's what we all go for, and that makes me so happy. I'm trying to think of what else. I will not give away whether or not Scout gets a cat, because I haven't quite decided how I'm going to introduce a potential cat or not. So, not going to give that away. I'm trying to think of what else. I don't know. Oh, and of course, the if someone stuck around this long to hear what I was talking about with the BGC spin-off, the sequel, it's going to be called Thunder Thighs and Hurricane Hips, and it's about half written right now. And they should look for the Kickstarter for it sometime this year.
Awesome.
I'm so excited. That was like the biggest request I got, was like, can you make a comic about big booty problems? I'm like, I'll see what I can do. So, I'm finally doing it.
That's amazing. That's awesome stuff. You know, I hate to say it, Paige, but you know, that ends this particular show. It's been such a wonderful time having you on.
Well, it's been great. Thank you so much for reaching out to me.
Well, no, anytime. Thank Paul Taylor from OpsuSquare.com. There you go, Paul. Got you a plug. For tuning me into your particular comics. So thank you so much for that. Well, as I mentioned, that ends this episode of Two Geeks Talking. Of course, I'm your host, Kurt Sasso, with, of course, our wonderful, creative, and talented guest, Paige Halsey Warren from AHTspace. I gotta elongate that space.
It's deeper in the throat. Like, that's a big problem if you're trying to do a Boston accent or a New England accent. It's the back of the throat. The top of the nose is more like Long Island.
And here I don't have an iced tea. Go figure. But check out her work at. You know, that's one thing I forgot to mention. What was the website?
So, the website is AHTspacecomic.com, and it's spelled like art, but with an H instead of the R. But all of my comics can be found at pageonecomics.com, and it's O-N-E. Spell that.
The word one, not the number one.
Oh, it's Paige with an I. Sorry, I should mention that. It's Paige, Paige.one.e.
.com.
.com. Yeah.
Good stuff.
I can't
Uh,
help but do creative spellings. What can I say?
well, you're actually spelling out words, your entire name and an actual word for a number. That's unheard of in today's leet speak.
Craziness. I'm a mold breaker.
But tune in next week for another great and talented creative person on Two Geeks Talking. Of course, I'm your host, Kurt Sasso, and this is episode something because I'm still recalculating all of my episodes from comic conventions and everything like that. We're probably in the 700 range by now. If we aren't, we're going to be there pretty darn soon. But you can go to our website, tgtmedia.com, or the word two, not the number two, geekstalking.com. You can go to our YouTube page, which is youtube.com/TGTmedia. And if you want to help support us for only $1 a month or $5 a month, whatever you'd like to help support, we have our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/2geekstalking. And thanks everyone for listening and watching. This is another wonderful and great and creative person on Two Geeks Talking. Thanks.